before I know it, I was swept off into this. Multiple vehicles have been swept away as well. So to all of you in 𝗙𝗲𝗃 County, please stay at home.
Has anybody else been noticing just how much it's been flooding all over the world? In the United States, in Europe, in India, even the Sahara Desert has flooded. Now, before we do get into this video, I do want to say more than likely this will be my last video until Saturday or Sunday when I buy a new laptop. For whatever reason, no matter what I do, no matter how many programs I uninstall and so forth, it's telling me my hard drive is full and it's becoming very difficult to create new content on this laptop. Now, to this day, Florida is still dealing with floods due to Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, but also due to Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, Florida is now dealing with an outbreak of what is known as 𝗕𝗲𝗁𝗪𝗔𝗍. Who comes up with these names? It sounds like they were watching Harry Potter. Just call it what it is. Flesh-eating bacteria. Yes, Florida is dealing with an outbreak of flesh-eating bacteria due to the hurricanes. Fun fact about me, I have an absolute phobia of flesh-eating bacteria. Matter of fact, about 1 or 2 years ago, I made a video, one of my first videos, of the top 5 worst diseases of all times, and I think I put the flesh-eating bacteria at number 2 or number 1, and that was just due to my own personal preference. Anytime I get a cut and it doesn't heal properly, I start sweating beads and I think to myself, do I have the bacteria? I know some people are going to say that's not a way to live, that's just living in fear, but it is what it is, it's just my own quirk. But anyway, getting back to the article, Public Health Department data had shown 13 people have passed away this year of a flesh-eating bacteria after Florida was slammed by back-to-back hurricanes, which had pushed floodwaters onto land. Now, and unfortunately, a lot of these locations that were impacted by Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Helene are still vastly flooded. Reading this article from Fox 13 Tampa Bay, it is titled, "This is Truly Unprecedented. 𝗕𝗲𝗃𝗁𝗪𝗔𝗍 River continues to flood out communities." Now, I know I pronounced that wrong, and somebody's going to say that's not how you pronounce it. It is how I'm reading it, right? It looks like 𝗕𝗲𝗃𝗁𝗪𝗃𝗁𝗃𝗁. I'm going to pronounce it 𝗕𝗲𝗃𝗁𝗃𝗁𝗃𝗁. The article continues to say, the 𝗕𝗲𝗃𝗁𝗃𝗁𝗃𝗁 River has gradually continued to rise over the last few days, flooding entire neighborhoods. The flooding Ridge Manor is dealing with in the aftermath of Hurricane Milton is unprecedented. So a lot of people believe that the impact of Hurricane Milton is over, but no, a lot of neighborhoods that were, like I said, were targeted by Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Helene have just been completely flooded out. They have been devastated, and they are still dealing with the impact of these floods. Ridge Manor has about 100 homes. As of Saturday afternoon, nearly all of them were surrounded by several feet of water. And again, this article was published on October 19th, and the situation has not gotten any better.
The state has shifted into a mood of things are getting better, and in this particular location, that's not the case right now.
Saturday resident Jason 𝗲𝗏𝗪𝗏𝗏 was one of several Good Samaritans who used boats to help take people to their homes to get any valuables they could that weren't already damaged.
Their houses are completely flooded out. And there's just no sign of the water letting up so far. Just, we keep waiting for it to recede, and it just keeps creeping up.
The neighborhood we were in has about 100 homes. As of Saturday afternoon, nearly all of them were surrounded by several feet of water. The neighborhood backs up to 2 large lakes, which 𝗲𝗏𝗪𝗏𝗏 says greatly contributed to the extensive flooding.
Back in 2004, when we moved out here, 4 hurricanes in a row, and the water didn't come up anywhere near like it has this time. I spent 25 years in the fire service, did water rescues off of this river, but never ever saw anything like this. This is truly unprecedented.
That is just one of many neighborhoods. Even to the east of Florida, all the way to the east, they are still dealing with floods as well, including Volusia County, where a lot of homes had been flooded out due to the St. Johns River. But that is just Florida. We also have to remember that North Carolina is still feeling the impact of floods due to the historic Hurricane Helene. Farms have been depleted and the soil is now toxic. But we know what happened to Florida. We know what happened in North Carolina, and I'm going to say it. They were hit by non-natural hurricanes. But then you have places like New Mexico that was completely flooded due to historic rain that they have not seen since 1901. And you really have to ask yourself, how can we trust that? Because anytime something unusual or strange happens, or it seems like it's a first, we'll always have news agencies or researchers come out and say, well, it happened 100 years ago, it happened over 100 years ago, just to make it seem like this is fine, this is completely normal. Now, even though nobody's alive to verify that something like this has happened once before, so we just have to take their word. But anyway, in New Mexico, and I'm reading this article published on October 22nd, in New Mexico, record rainfall and historic flooding in New Mexico resulted in 2 people losing their lives and over 300 plus rescues. And again, taking their word for it, the National Weather Service in Albuquerque, New Mexico reported nearly 6 inches of rain in a 24-hour period in Roswell, New Mexico, breaking the previous daily record set in 1901. They said the exact same thing about those historic rainfalls in Dubai, where the sky turned completely green, and then suddenly there was this historic flooding due to all this rain. And they said something like this has not been seen for over 100 years. Again, to make it seem like it's completely normal. But this quote-unquote normal historic rainfall has just completely devastated Roswell, New Mexico. But it's not just the United States. Europe has been seeing countries that have been completely flooded as well, and they all say the same thing, historic rainfall, but this historic rainfall was seen 100 years ago. Now, England was hit by really bad floods last month in September. Reading this article from BBC News, which was published on September 23rd, heavy rain and flash flooding have battered parts of England and Wales, causing widespread travel disruption and damage to properties. Roads and houses flooded in central and southern England after some experienced a month's worth of rain in a matter of hours. So back in September, England and Wales experienced a month's worth of rain in a matter of hours. And it sounds very similar to what's currently taking place in New Mexico and what had taken place in Dubai. Sinkholes were appearing, homes were destroyed, cars were floating. So these rains are causing some very apocalyptic scenes. But they still go on to say everything's fine, everything's normal, because these floods, these historic floods had occurred in Wales and England even before your 𝗕𝗄𝗄 and 𝗕𝗵𝗄 were born. This month, just recently, matter of fact, Italy and France have been hit together by severe flooding after heavy rain. Reading this article, which was published on October 20th, it says, a wave of bad weather has ravaged parts of Italy and central France, with storms and heavy rainfall expected batter to Italy's south until Tuesday. The Italian region of Emilia-Romagna has so far been hit the worst, with more than 160 millimeters of rain falling in the city. Continuing to read from the article, it says more than 1,000 people were evacuated on Friday, and French Prime Minister said that the firefighters and other rescuers have been involved in about 2,300 operations. Now that rains have stopped, many residents have returned to find their homes destroyed by floodwaters. And this is pretty much the same scenario practically all over the world, where these heavy rains are destroying lands, destroying homes. Again, it looks very apocalyptic. French weather agency Météo France said 685.8 millimeters of rain fell in 48 hours in some locations. Now, reading this article, which was published by Reuters on October 20th, floods have destroyed 1.1 million tons of rice in Bangladesh. Continuing to read the article, it says, floods brought by heavy monsoon rains and torrential upstream runoff struck the country in 2 major waves in August and this month of October, claiming at least 75 lives and affecting millions, particularly in the eastern and northern regions where crop damage has been the most severe. They are saying over in Bangladesh, this is the worst they have ever seen the rain or the flooding. They are not even being coy about it. The floods have also severely impacted other agricultural products, including more than 200,000 tons of vegetables. Total nationwide agricultural losses due to the flooding are estimated at around 45 billion. Bangladesh, the world's 3rd largest rice producer, typically produces nearly 45 million tons of rice a year to feed its population of 170 million. However, natural disasters, quote unquote, natural disasters often disrupt production and lead to an increase of dependency on imports. Now, they're also saying that this year's floods have underscored Bangladesh's vulnerability to climate change. So there you go. They are bringing out the old climate change card. But it's not just Bangladesh. There are multiple locations in South India that are also currently being hit hard by floods. These locations, these areas are just a handful of locations that are currently impacted by historic rainfall and heavy floods. Reading this article by CNN, which was published on October 14th, the Sahara Desert flooded for the first time in decades. That is right. Even the Sahara Desert has been flooded. Continuing to read the article, it says, striking images from the Sahara Desert show large lakes etched into rolling sand dunes after one of the most arid, barren places in the world was hit with its first floods in decades. They go on to say the Sahara does experience rain, but usually just a few inches a year and rarely in late summer. Over 2 days in September, however, intense rain fell in parts of the desert in southeast Morocco after a low-pressure system pushed across northwestern Sahara. Preliminary NASA satellite data showed nearly 8 inches of rain in some parts of the region. So yes, when all these other locations are being flooded, well, so is the Sahara Desert. So what exactly is happening here? Well, we know what's happening here. They can see these clouds. They can produce this massive rainfall. And yet, it's still just such a kooky, crazy conspiracy theory. But we know they are flooding these places. They are destroying these places because it's all by design. This is all for the 2030 agenda. It's all for these smart cities. But I will definitely get into this more on Saturday's video because there's some definite proof going around that this is exactly what they are doing. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like, as any engagement does help the channel grow. Once again, thank you so much for your support.